So welcome to Evanston, Wyoming. We're here at the former Union Pacific machine shop, and my name's Lee Calkins, and welcome to Evanston. We've got 56 guys here that have showed up with modules and trains from 25 of the continental United States today. And we've got a layout that is 1,200 square feet and covers all 15,000 square feet of this building. Currently, we're running trains. So here we are at Plummer Junction. Plummer Junction is a 4-module set of the 295 modules that we have here today. And Plummer Junction's modeled after an actual junction in Plummer, Idaho, where the Milwaukee Road and the Union Pacific met. And everything's running great. And to tell you a little more about FreemoN, we're going to turn some time over to Paul Bender.
We modeled FreemoN, and FreemoN is largely a single-track modular standard designed for operations. And we particularly modeled FreemoN, which has single-track end plates. This layout has 200 and some odd pieces in it that are all built to this standard. Basically, the standard says you have to have straight track at the 4 inches at the beginning of the module, and between the end plates, as long as you meet the minimum radius, you can have whatever you want in between, which is why it's called FreemoN. One of the nice things about FreemoN is that you can build a small section that you can operate as a switching layout at home. And then you can bring it to a show like this one and be part of a huge layout where you can run long trains like this one that's approaching here in front of me that you may not be able to run at home. And you still get the enjoyment of what you're doing at home, plus the fun of operating with others.
My name is Carl Andrashko. I am from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've been in FreemoN for about 12 years now. I got into FreemoN because I really like a lot of the different aspects of it. One of the big things for me was the ability to model more prototypical scenes. So for example, I have white pine here. This is an 18-foot long module set based off of white pine in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I also have a second module here that is another 6-foot module called Afton Canyon, based off of Afton Canyon just outside of Barstow, California. I've been space restrained for a long time. So for me, the ability to build a scene that would attach to a larger railroad is always a big advantage for me. So to be able to come in and have a scene like this that connects to a 1,200-foot railroad is awesome, because we can run more prototypically, we can run locals, we can run long unit trains. So for us, we can run 30-plus foot trains here very comfortably. So it's nice to be able to model a little bit more prototypically. I myself, I do prefer prototype modeling. That's why I decided to do the scenes that I did. So White Pine, like I said, based off of a small town in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I actually modeled Wisconsin Central in 1996 is the focal point. So I'm trying to keep it as close as I can to that. It is a partially finished module set. So like all things, it's advancing over time. So it starts on the far end with the White Pine yard. So I have my own yard for the module set. Then it comes down to a series of small industries. Global Wood Sticks is a popsicle stick making plant, and then the White Pine Copper Refinery, which actually took boxcar loads of copper from British Columbia and refined it in from copper anodes to copper cathodes. So it generates, it loads in, loads out, generating copper scrap for the copper wire manufacturing. But it gives me a lot of switching that I can do. So when I have it home and by myself, it's hours of fun for me, but when I bring it to a larger module setup like this, now it becomes part of that bigger world, part of the larger scale of railroading. So for my switch controls, I prefer something very tactile. I feel it gives a better sense of that actual railroading sort of work. So what I used is Ricks Rick supplies a kit that is the plastic CTC style plates. There is a CTC panel on the back side of this. This side is set up for switches, and it's N and R, normal and reversed. But with a quick little simple throw, it powers my tortoises. So it gives a very quick, reliable, and fun sort of feel for the module.
I'm Eric Eggle, member of Silicon Valley FreemoN, also kind of Sacramento FreemoN as I've moved recently closer to Sacramento. This is Why Not, and how it's spelled. I do my best to change that every single time I have the opportunity, so don't mind the spelling of the module. This module is going on 12 plus years now. It came out of necessity. When we first started building our modules, it became apparent that we wanted a way to turn around our trains rather than having to pick them up and get our greasy fingerprints all over them. Sort of the inspiration for the shape of the individual pieces, and there's 4 pieces that make up the circle and then 2 pieces that make up Ys on either end. Came from the American Ends folks in Germany, where they had a 90-degree corner that was sort of elongated, and 4 of those made a really nice circle. The benchwork itself is pre-finished plywood, an inspiration from New Yankee Workshop, Norm Abrams and Company. And at the time I was building kitchen cabinets for the first go-around, and so the blade on the table saw started spinning, and we ended up with the plywood end pieces with the foam overlay, all in our goal to have a really lightweight set of modules. The other aspect to the shape is that they pair up in pairs so that the scenery faces each other to protect the scenery and so forth, and then the bottoms are exposed. And the sides and the backs then take the beating rather than the scenery on the top side and the track, of course. So I originally built this out as a loop, but also intending that the 4 pieces might have become separate use pieces for corners as needed, but it's pretty much been a loop all the time, especially with all the scenery. I originally laid out the 2 Y pieces on either end in the main loop, and after a number of folks got tired of looking at the blue foam, they asked to take the pieces off and do the scenery. So Nils Moberg and MC Fujitsuwarma took the pieces away and did all the scenery on it. And the 2 of them coordinated that and brought it back pretty quick, really. And it looks pretty much as it does now, just the trees were in a little better shape. So electrically, it's a reversing section from the gaps here. So use the section boundary on the module as the point at which to isolate it electrically for reversing the entire loop. Keeps it pretty simple, no extra gaps. And like I said, it's about 12 years old now. It's held up pretty well. Construction-wise, at the time, we were really big on Gorilla Glue. Kind of would lean away from that right now. The polyurethanes, they grip really well to begin with, but then they kind of dissolve a little later on. So really want to stick with that wood glue. The good old wood glue really holds up better in the long run. It's held up for more than 10 years now, pretty well untouched, and letting us turn our trains around without having to get our dirty fingers all over them.
Hello, I'm Joe Fair from Eagan, Minnesota, part of the Minnesota FreemoN group. We're here at the Evanston, Wyoming operations meet for FreemoN and Scale, and I've brought Randolph, which is one of my 9 modules that I brought with us. Randolph is unique because it's a model of a specific town that is operated by a railroad that I used to work for called Progressive Rail. And I'm going to take you on a little tour of the different industries that are on it. Starting on the south end here, this is a company called C&S Chemical. They handle hydrite in covered hopper cars, which are back here, and tank cars that unload at this point, which I haven't finished the silo to offload. And then they load the trucks, and it goes for water purification and water treatment. As you go a little bit further north, there's this nice little loading dock, and this loading dock is used for GAF shingles. It's trucked down from Minneapolis and loaded in the cars to go out on the Union Pacific. In the background here is a company called River Country Co-op. They get fertilizers for their local farmers, and that's about it. This one was scratch built. This is a company called Step Saver. And Step Saver receives bulk salt by a covered hopper car, and they float it into the silos. Then they bring in their bulk trucks and take their salt from the bulk silos here, delivered direct to the customer with no waste, no bags or anything like that. And the last industry we're going to talk about right here is Quality Propane. They handle magnesium chloride that arrives in tank cars and is offloaded from the tank cars on the center track through piping that I haven't modeled yet into these rubber blats. These blats will then balloon up as they get filled up. They can hold 15 tank car loads of material in here, and it goes into tanker trucks for delivery, and it's a dust control for dirt roads and things, which are common in Minnesota, especially common at aggregate plants and things like that. Randolph is a real town. It's in Minnesota, and I worked here. I handled a lot of the industries here, switched to myself in the prototype world, so decided to model it.
My name is Ryan Wilkerson. I'm from the Sacramento area. I brought 9 modules, 3 distinct groups of modules to Evanston, Wyoming for the FreemoN N-Scale show. So one of the first module sets that I set priority that they built were from the Dunsmuir, California area, just a little bit north of there. And so I'm standing in front of 4 modules that work together that display from Mott to Azalea, including at Big Canyon Creek. So I really like this area because I've been going to a camp since about 8 years old. I spent a lot of summers up there watching trains, so I spent many hours trackside enjoying Southern Pacific Railroad in the 1990s. And when I saw the ability to do FreemoN, that you could model anything you wanted, that was my priority. So I designed the modules, and it's been really great to be able to model exactly how it is in real life and not be constrained by standards that would prevent you from doing what you want. So I've been spending almost every summer, most of my life in this area, and I really love being trackside up there. So when it came to modeling, I really liked the Southern Pacific Railroad and focused on that. So one of the main features of this module set is that it's a combination of 2 sidings, and the feature is the lap siding. It's an overlapping siding that they're on opposite sides of the main line, and the main line cuts through it. So we're going to see that in operation right now. As we discussed before, this is a lap siding on the Southern Pacific Railroad just above Dunsmuir, California at Mont Azalea. And it's an interesting feature. It's a lap siding that was the joint between 2 sidings, and it allows them to do 3-way meets or use it as 2 separate very long sidings over 2 miles each. So we're going to demonstrate how it can be used. And so we have a train at Azalea waiting on a higher priority intermodal train. We have another train sitting on the Mott siding. And the main line, the interesting part about the lap siding is that the main line switches sides. So it cuts right through the middle, unlike a regular crossover. So Sean, why don't you bring the intermodal train through, and we'll see how that looks. So it's a very useful feature for dispatchers to be able to time a meet with higher priority trains such as Coast Starlight. They frequently meet other trains there, and it's above Cantera Loop, which is a very steep part of the railroad, above 2% grade. So they would bring trains out of Dunsmuir, bring it up to Mont Azalea, and do their meets there. So now we're going to throw the lap siding, and Steve's going to bring his train forward through Azalea. And at the same time, you can get motion from the Southern Pacific short train here with the ballast hoppers. And that's how a lap siding works.
Hi, my name is Mark Watson. I'm from FreemoN, Nebraska. This is one of my modules here. I brought 48. It's about 20% of the entire layout. This one in front of me is the Plattsmouth bridges. It crosses the Missouri River between Nebraska and Iowa. This is a 5-module set, beginning with this curve and all the way down there to the cornfields. So the entire bridge is 1,200 feet, scale feet. This section alone is 400 feet, which is about 2.5 feet in scale. The entire bridge is 8.5 feet in scale. And this is all entirely 100% 3D printed. So it took me about 3 months to design each bridge. And then the total print time was about 90 hours per bridge. One of the challenges of designing the bridge is being a travel layout, I wanted it to be easily maintained. If something breaks, I want it to be easy to swap out and fix. So everything is snap fit together. If something breaks, I can pop it out and put a new one in while the entire thing remains operational. And right now I printed it with kind of a draft mode detail just to make sure it works. I can eventually go in and add more and more detail, again, without having to break it apart or while it remains operational. This is my father, Paul Watson's mountain return loop module. We needed a way to turn trains around at the end of the layout, and my dad just designed up this awesome little thing. It's kind of a folded balloon. You come in through the town there, up around, through a couple tunnels, back around, and then back down out. There are so many different angles to view trains on this. We got some bridges over each other, bridges over water. This is a swing bridge for the hiking trail that my father scratch built. This entire thing has 4 sections. They all crate together. The mountains lift off and crate together. We have some quirks. So when they're folded together and then we unpack it, sometimes trees get left on the wrong side. We usually just leave it because people always find that amusing. We wanted to make sure that it operated extremely well for a public FreemoN layout. So we wanted to keep the grade below 1.5%. So it actually came out to a 1.2% grade. And the minimum radius is 28 inches. It's usually one of our most reliable modules, and it always draws the crowd at a train show. This is the town of Marsland. It's a real town in western Nebraska, but today it's a ghost town. So this is my interpretation as if it was still alive and prosperous today. I really like how it just kind of leads into the mountains, so we get a good kind of viewing angle with the mountains in the background. Some things like I have a sign over here that actually exists in the town of Marsland today. It's like a wagon wheel with the name on it. I have a couple of 3D printed details on here, like a carriage and horse train. This was my second ever module that I built. Originally it was a 2 4-foots, and then I eventually extended it to be a 2 5-foot module, so we added some extra space just for switching and operations. My largest module set, my biggest build, this is the Rosa Y and the Hobson Yard, based on the prototype in Lincoln, Nebraska. The entire thing is 11 sections, and we come with double track Y, double track all the way around, so we can move a lot of freights through this module section. We have eastbound and westbound main lines, a center classification yard, an engine yard, and a rip track. And then on the far side, we have a switch lead, so we can do a lot of operations on this module set. So the yard, we have an engine tracks here, engine facility. We have classification in the middle, eastbound and a westbound track, and then this module set goes all the way down to those 2 bridges beyond the silo, the West O Street underpass. Each bridge is scratch built out of styrene.
My name's Kevin Anderson. I'm from North Salt Lake, Utah. And I started building modules 2 years ago, in 2019. This module here is of Wendover, Utah. It was actually designed 2 years ago and was the second module I ever built, and finished it last year. It is prototypical. It is based on 1944 during World War II. In Wendover during World War II, it was an Army air base, and they trained the bomber crews. for B-24s, B-17s, and they even had some P-47 pilots. So I wanted to take and show what it looked like in 1944. And so that dealt with doing some research on structures that no longer exist. One of those was the Western Pacific Railroad Depot. I was able to find the plans drawn in 1911, and as I started building it, I found some more plans dated 1929 that had this little extension on it. So I added that to it. And so this is all scratch built, and that is what the depot looked like in Wendover, Utah, Gerlach, Nevada, Portola, California, and Elko, Nevada. They only had 4 of these hotel styles. The town of Wendover itself is more freelance-based because the structures themselves were difficult to come up with. They did have a Victory service, and so I found a kit of an Al's Victory service, so I put that on. I added a diner and a small motel showing US 40 of a busy town during the war. I even was able to date it with some billboards about war bonds. So, and to finish this up, let's take a look at the other side. On this side of the module is that showing the actual air base of what it looked like. Again, we have B-24 bombers, we have some P-47 fighters, and a B-17 bomber. I wanted to add the B-29, but it was a little bit too big for the module to be able to make it look good. On the base, all the buildings were made out of wood. A lot of them were unfinished, like this structure here. It was covered with tar paper. It wasn't finished until like the mid-50s when they actually put wood siding on it and painted it up white. This is the operations building that they used to watch the planes and the pilots and what they did. The tower still stands today. They had 4 of these hangars. And I found a great photo that I loved so much that I had to make a copy of it, bringing the bomber out of the hangar itself. It's all made out of styrene and it's all scratch built. All these structures here are scratch built. This is the squadron building where they actually held classes and taught the pilots and crews the different things that they needed to know for their missions. This was a really fun module to build and to research, so I'm glad I'm able to share it. This spur that ends right here, in 1939, there was a railroad called the Deep Creek Railway. It folded up. It was owned by the Western Pacific, and it went bankrupt, and they folded everything into the Western Pacific as it was. During the war, they used it for storage, for different box cars and different cars that they needed for the base. So this is actually part of what the Deep Creek Railway was, because it kept going south to Gold Hill, Utah, where they had a gold mine. So that's Wendover in 1944. This represents Green River, Utah, and down on the Green River, Utah, the Denver and Rio Grande had a bridge. They still do, actually. The UP runs over it. It's a 3-span bridge crossing the Green River, and I go over it every week, and so I figured this would be a great thing to model. Being N-scale on a module was the best choice for it. And so I used Atlas bridges and Walters piers to make the bridge. This is actually how it looks. On the one side, you've got a farm, and across from that is a state park with a golf course. And on the other side, it's pretty barren ruins of what Green River used to be with different buildings and that. So I was able to put some of that into it. But the Green River is popular for river rafting. There's fishing in it. And this is the very last module that I did. I just barely finished this at the beginning of July. And it's come a long way for the last 2 years. When I first was introduced to modular railroading with FreemoN at the National Train Show in 2019. Watching what those modelers had done inspired me to want to do this, to where I have more planned. I want to keep building. This has been fun, just building these, and I enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Frank Wilhelm, and I've been in model railroading since about 2012. First in HO and now lately in N-scale. And today I'd like to walk you through my FreemoN module that I have here at the FreemoN meet in Evanston. So I really like the hand lay track because it gives me full control over what I do and how the track work turns out. And then I really like switching operations, so as a result of that, I try and compact as much track work into as little space as possible. So what we're looking at here is what I've called my smoking module, and it's going to be a firefighting module when it's finished. And on it, I have some storage tracks, and then because of the compactness of the 3-foot module, I've made use of some compact track work, like the 3-way switch on this side, and then a double slip switch over here. And even though it's only a 3-foot module, the track work takes quite a bit of time to build. And again, it's a hobby, so time doesn't count. And I really enjoy it, and it's a lot of fun. And then I really like to have track work that runs flawlessly so that others enjoy the running on it as well. So there's going to be a lake here when it's finished, a helicopter landing area here, barracks and office buildings on that side, and then I have a storage track here. Tank cars get filled over here, and you'll notice this sort of comes off at an angle here, and you might wonder why that is, and that's because this angle fits onto my other module, and it forms a nice corner module in the basement when I'm not at a FreemoN setup. And then as you can see, the turnouts are operable from both sides, and they're all manual on this module, so it's just a push-pull rod underneath, and you can see that it just operates the switches, and it gives you a very positive feel for turning the switches, and the operators seem to really like that. It puts them in touch with what they're doing on the module.
So now that you've seen the layout, maybe you'll be inspired to join the FreemoN group in your area. FreemoN makes it so you can build modules at home, run a small layout at home, and show up to a show that takes up a 15,000 square foot building, and run trains and hang out with guys you've never met and leave like best friends. And so thank you for watching, and hope to see you at another show. Well, what'd you guys think?
They can't answer, Lee.
I know. Let's try this again. Okay, so I don't know what to say at the moment. I just completely blanked my mind.